Hi guys, Speaking Hell Books, and I'm here to review Margaret George's The Confessions of Young Nero. This is actually book one, although it's 500 pages. She says that she wasn't able to fit all of his story in this one book, and she couldn't do that to him because the story gets even better. This book was great. I mean, I am a huge Margaret George fan, so no surprise there. I love Margaret George because she teaches you about history and things that you want to know about, but it's not in like that really dense, hard to digest fashion. Like, this is super enjoyable. I don't want to put it down, and yet I learned so much. She tries to stay very close to the real story. Yes, this is the painting of a remorseful Nero after his mother, who is Agrippina, has been killed. There are some spoilery things. I didn't know anything about Nero going into this, but I think there are more known facts about him. So I'm going to try and keep this as spoiler-free, I guess, in the beginning as I can. I just wanted you guys to see the beautiful end papers. And this is how we start off the book. This is the poison hemlock. So right away you start thinking about what is going on with poison. And then I really like the first couple pages. She puts a family tree, sort of a pedigree chart in here. All of the squares were emperors. Starts off with Caesar. There is Cleopatra and Caesar, but it actually goes through the other line and follows it through Augusta, then Tiberius, then Caligula. That's where we start the book off, when Caligula is the emperor. Actually goes then to Claudius, who is Nero's great uncle, and his great uncle then marries his mother. So yes, his mother and his uncle get married. So Agrippina and Claudius. And then Agrippina, who had Nero with a father that passed very early on, he doesn't remember. They then adopt Nero, and so that is quite the tree. It's actually very useful. She also gives you a few maps, so very beautiful. This was Nero's Rome prior to the Great Fire, which is where the book ends at the fire. And here is the Roman area, which is useful because they do go travel a bunch there. So the book is primarily told by Nero. There's two exceptions to that. There are two women. One is Locusta, and she is the poisoner. And one is Act, who was one of his lovers that was not officially ever his wife. And again, this is why I love historical fiction so much, because the truth is so entertaining. You can't make this stuff up. It is unbelievable. The story is so unbelievable. Nero's story starts, his real name is Lucius, and Lucius is being brought up by his aunt Lepida and his uncle Silanus. His father, like I said, was passed very early. His mother has been outcast to an island, so he doesn't know either of his parents. He kind of has a great upbringing, and he, although is young, is forced right into politics right away. He meets his uncle, Caligula, who is the emperor, and the first thing he does is try to murder him, like laughingly, and we realize Caligula is quite mad. Power can go to your head. Craziness about people trying to get to your position can go to your head. So he actually walks in to a conversation going on between his aunt Lepida and his aunt Lepida's daughter, whose name is Messalina, and Messalina is married to Lucius's great uncle. They're all talking about how they can't stand Caligula and they want to kill him, and they even bring Locusta in to talk about how they could potentially kill him, but Claudius, his great uncle, is like, no, I can't do this, and just happens Caligula is killed by some other person instead. Willingly or unwillingly, that is a debatable subject. His great uncle Claudius ends up being emperor. So therefore Messalina, who is Lepida's daughter, is empress. And Claudius and Messalina have two kids, Octavia and Britannicus. They're both younger than Lucius, and he doesn't really like them or have anything to do with them. He basically has no friends except for his tutors, which he really loves music and art and everything having to do with, history and learning, and he just immerses himself in many of those things. Once Claudius is officially emperor, he can bring back Agrippina, who is Lucius's mother, from exile. That is a game changer. We are talking about a strong woman who isn't scared to do anything to get what she wants, and she knows how to play the game better than most people. She right away grabs Lucius. She finds someone viable to marry her that is strong and will protect them, because they are close to the crown now, and they need to have power but also not be insecure in their safety. That is probably one of the best times in Lucius's life, when he has this sort of father figure that he really does love, and he starts training to be an athlete, and he starts getting into chariot racing, which he really loves. But as he comes to find out, his father's use is growing fast, and yet again we have Locusta come, and Agrippina uses her services, and Lucius is in shock to find out that mother is slowly poisoning him. And this is all by design, actually, because she has her sights on somebody else. Her great uncle, who is the emperor, and yes, they are related, but there's laws that she can bend and shape to her will. She does. She starts laying down the foundation, and she ends up getting married to him, and she ends up being an Augusta, which has never been done before for a live woman. They've always given that title to somebody after they've passed, and she starts really controlling the reins of the government and ruling the roost. And in doing so, she also changes laws to benefit her and Lucius. So she sets up Lucius, who is now named Nero, to marry Octavia, his sort of half-sister, half-cousin, whatever. This would cement his legacy and the lines of the Julian and Claudian households. So first she does that, and Nero is so mad at her, but he thinks, I can get out of it down the line, and so he goes along with it. And she bends the law for being an adult, so once, you can see where this is going, once he is prematurely called an adult, she starts working the poison magic on her husband. So we will have a new emperor that has been foretold by an oracle to her, that her son would be an emperor, but he would end up killing her as well. Which she says, okay, that's okay with me, as long as, as long as my son gets to be emperor. We find out she's really not into giving up the power that she's worked so hard to needle her way through. And when Nero does finally claim to be the emperor, he gets annoyed with her stepping all over him. She was on a power trip. This was one of my favorite parts of the book. He has to outsmart his mother. And some of it works and some of it doesn't. Also, there are furious rumors going around that they are romantically involved. And Margaret George does touch on this a little bit. Like, he has these Oedipus-like weird feelings that he's trying to fight because his mother is like setting him up for it. It's horrible. It's like such a horrible mother. I'm not going to go any further, but the most famous thing about Nero is that he was playing the fiddle when Rome burned. And to be fair, as Margaret George explains it, it's not that he was standing by doing nothing when he knew that Rome was burning. He was performing a play that he actually wrote and sang about Troy, which he was like obsessed with, the Greeks. He finds out the next morning that a fire taking control of the whole city, and he gets on his horse right away to get to the city, and that's where it stops. And now I need to wait for the next book. And then afterward, Margaret George speaks about why Nero has gotten such a bad rap. And I do want to do more research into things, because from just a brief Googling around, I've seen things go both ways. Like, the common people really loved him because he was very generous and he brought a time of prosper to them, and he made things better in a lot of ways. But a lot of history's memories are left over from 3 works, and all 3 of them were kind of leaning towards the Senate. So they didn't like how one man had all the power. They also came from the family that was after him, and so they were kind of trying to tarnish his image. And there's even a movie made up called Quo Vadis. I can't pronounce it. That does not portray Nero very nicely. I am going to sit down and watch at least 2 where the book ends, and the little clips I've seen on YouTube, it's not good. Overall, he was a man before his time. He had a ton of ideas for improvement. His imagination was always going. He was drawn to things that were beautiful, and he did tend to like and trust the common man more than the aristocratic political man. And Margaret George likens him to Mark Antony. He did bring so much to culture, and it's so funny how your image in time can be changed one way or another. So I highly recommend this book. I gave it 5 stars. What I want out of a book, she gives it to me. I learned so much, and I'm just blown away by another book that you can tell she researches her books so well, and she's totally immersed herself in it to give that knowledge to us. Thank you, Margaret George. I am very impressed. I really loved this book, and I highly recommend it to anybody. I really, really liked it. So, have you read this book? Have you read other books about the Romans? I must confess, I started I, Claudius, which Margaret George says was based on one of the 3 works that did not lend to him kindly, and I ended up not finishing it at the time. But now I'm kind of intrigued to find out more about Nero. Let me know.